don't we just shift that over, Brad? Let's start talking about the Cardinals.
Okay.
In their 2020 season. So I mentioned a little bit ago. Oh, by the way, for anybody who hasn't yet, it's a little late in the season. The 2020 Fantasy Football Almanac and Draft Guide is still available on Amazon.com. You can pick it up. Free updates. If you have already bought the book, email me for the free updates, for crying out loud. But so the Arizona Cardinals, they add, I think, the best defensive player in the draft, because he's one of these versatile guys. I've been seeing this for a couple years, Brad. With the NFL shifting obviously to pass. Pass first. What we saw with Brian Urlacher in Chicago decade ago, 15 years ago or whatever it was, they draft a safety and turn him into a middle linebacker. Palomala also for Pittsburgh was one of these guys that, he was a strong safety, but you could stack him in the box. He could play even as like a fifth linebacker on that team.
He played midfield, man. Wherever he needed to be, he would go there.
And so, I haven't understood, and this is why I always laughed at the Washington football team and their draft philosophy. They have always drafted defensive linemen and turned them into linebackers. So they take a slow, an average speed guy on the defensive line, and they turn him into a slow linebacker. You want to be doing the opposite. You want to take kind of like a bulky safety and turn him into a fast linebacker.
Sure.
Arizona added, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the draft, and they needed defense. And they add, in our opinion on this show, one of the best 2 to 3 wide receivers in the league, hands down, if not the best, at value. They trade basically David Johnson, who they weren't using anyway. This team is significantly better. I still have questions on defense, but Kyler Murray's going to be better this year. And you've met Kingsbury a couple times. You like his juice as a coach.
Yeah, he seems like he's capable, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So I look at this team and I think they're an interesting team to me. They're a team that is trapped in a bad division, meaning it's hard to win this division.
Yeah. Right.
If you took Arizona and put them in the AFC, say South, with Houston and Indianapolis and Tennessee.
Yeah, it's a different story. Right.
I mean, possibly a playoff team, I think, right?
They're in a tough division, yeah. I like the improvements as well. And in my opinion, there's a few positions on the football field where you can put a rookie in and have significant impact right off the bat, right? And I think defensive end specifically is one of them, because I think that it's based on a lot of talent and not so much understanding schemes and concepts and knowing where to be and when. That's a difficult thing for rookies, right? I.e. wide receivers. So you upgrade the defensive line. So if you can do that, you have just literally upgraded your defense, in my opinion, in the most important arena, right? That's it, man. If you can dominate the D-line, your defense is forever changed, right?
And not only do you get a pass rush, but you get a guy that can cover as well. I mean, think about that.
Tell me his name again, Sean.
Oh, gosh, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, because you cut out earlier. But even still, and back to Kyler Murray, we've seen that guy can play, right?
Oh, yeah.
I do expect a little bit of a sophomore slump because people have more film on him. Other teams know his tendencies, and I think that's just part of getting better. It's just a prediction. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. So by numbers-wise and maybe even wins, I think that maybe they drop off. Kyler's numbers may be lower, the wins may be less, but maybe he's better for it. Maybe he actually plays better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think, in terms of fantasy football, people are like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to be a monster. He's going to get his 150 targets just like he did from Deshaun Watson. And I don't think that's the way this offense is built. I don't think we can replicate the Deshaun Watson to DeAndre Hopkins chemistry, especially in a season where they haven't had an offseason thanks to, the shutdowns and the lack of all this stuff. I do like Kyler Murray. I think he blossomed last year. He's quick. He has an arm. The only beef with him is that he's about 2 inches shorter than Russell Wilson, and that's shorter optically. A lot of people can't wrap their heads around it. And we had serious questions last year.
He's a short guy. He's little. He's real little.
And my question was can he throw over the offensive line? Well, he was able to do that last year. So that my biggest question last year for Kyler Murray was answered. I like him. I like him quite a bit.
Well, here's the thing: is he's been throwing over offensive lines for his whole career. Like you'd have to assume that even in high school he was the shortest one,
Yeah, right.
right? I mean, he's always been throwing over tall guys, so it's not like this is a new thing for him. Those offensive linemen in college are just as tall as they are in the pros. I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So he knows what to do, and he's proven he's been able to do it. It is odd to see him back there, but
Yeah.
he's not the rule, he's the exception, and exceptions exist. And Doug Flutie was able to play, right? And Kurt Warner bagged groceries, but got hot
Yeah,
and
right.
stayed hot, right? He wasn't Drew Brees, but he would get hotter than anyone else, and these things can exist.
Absolutely. And for people who kind of spend a lot of time in the South, since I moved to Chicago, I use this reference and nobody knows what I'm talking about. But I say like Kyler Murray's like a little water bug. Like those little kind of like beetle looking things that if you go to a creek, they're just like hovering around and just moving super quick. And it's like you can't get your hands on the guy. I like him. I like him quite a bit. And he actually this offseason, interestingly, he put on a lot of bulk, which, I'm not a big bulk guy for a quarterback, but what else are you going to do kind of when you're in a shorter stature? But he didn't lose any of his speed or quickness. So he put on like muscle, some extra padding, I guess, and ability to take some hits, but didn't lose any of that quickness. So going to be interesting. Let me hit you with the line here. So we got for the Arizona Cardinals 7.5 wins. Are you over or are you under?
I'm going to go under and put him at 7. I think the division is too tough. I think the bet makers are underselling the Rams and the Seahawks, and of course the Niners are going to be fantastic. So I think they're going to a good season for them would be 7 wins, and if they get 7, I don't think that's anything to scoff at whatsoever. I think that would be a really good thing for them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they added some great pieces, don't get me wrong, but I still have questions. I mean, this defense just wasn't as good, and it takes time. It takes time to gel. They didn't get the offseason. You got the whole dynamic where defensive coordinators have been watching Kyler Murray and trying to find holes in him. They've had nothing to do but watch film, and these defensive coordinators in the league are pretty smart, particularly inside this division. They're pretty smart. I like the team. Don't get me wrong, guys. I think they're 7-9. I think they're probably a year, maybe 2 years away because of how tough this division is from clawing their way into the playoffs. But they're getting better. They're better than I thought they'd be last season. They added some great pieces, but some flashy pieces. So I think some bettors are latching onto the flash right now. I want some more meat and potatoes on the defense, and that's basically one more draft. So they're close. They're close. I like them. I'm on the under. I think they're 7-9, and a 7-9 team, frankly, that's gonna. Whoever they're playing, in the NFC, whichever division they're playing, whichever AFC division they're playing, they're not a team people are going to want to play. They're not. So,
No.
So there you go.